Labai malonu Jūs matyti prisijungusius prie verslo augimo programos, kuri yra skirta smulkiam ir vidutiniam Lietuvos verslui. Kas tik šiandien prisijungite prie šios verslo augimo programos renginių ciklo, primenu, kad visų viešų seminarų įrašus bei būsimus kitus programos renginius galite rasti Facebook paskyroje SEB Lietuvoje. Šių seminarų verslo augimo programą mes pradėjome seminarais apie inovacijos pozicionavimą tiksliniams klientams, vėliau kalbėjome apie verslo modelio kūrimą atsižvelgiant į veiklos tvarumo aspektus ir jau spėjom pakalbėti apie būtinus žingsnius efektyvaus veiksmų plano sudarimui savo tikslo pasiekimui. Pirmų seminarų metu atsakėte savo klausimus, kam yra kuriama paslauga, kokį verslo modelį geriausiai pasirinkti savo inovacijos pardavimui arba paslaugų suteikimui ir ko yra konkrečiai siekiama rinkoje su jūsų naujoju produktu. Šiandien jau yra 4. SEB verslo augimo programos seminaras. Ir jo tema yra kaip įvertinti inovaciją ir skatinti pardavimus. Pardavimai užima tikrai labai svarbią vietą inovacijos vystymo procese. O veiksmingų pardavimų strategijų pasirinkimas gali padėti ne tik tai pranokti jūsų konkurentus, bet ir keletą kartų padidinti pajamas. Tad šios sesijos metu jūs sužinosite, kaip reikėtų susikurti veiksmingą pardavimų strategiją, kaip identifikuoti savo tikslinę auditoriją ir kokiais kanalais būtų geriausia ją pasiekti. Ir kokias technikas reikėtų naudoti tam, kad prisitrauktumėte savo klientus. Šio seminaro lektorius Patrick Collins yra pardavimų konsultantas. Pastarosius 6 metus dirbantis pardavimų konsultantų ir pranešėjų ir padedantis įmonėms visuose pardavimų žingsniuose. Tai yra nuo kontaktų užmezgimo, rinkodaros ir pardavimų strategijos planavimo iki sandorių sudarimo, užbaigimo ar net kliento aptarnavimo būdo pasirinkimo. Patrick yra ir Prospect Labs įkūrėjas, kurios pagrindinis produktas yra automatizuotas pardavimų įrankis, kuris skirtas būtent mažoms ir vidutinėms įmonėms, kai yra siekiama palengvinti ir efektyvinti patį pardavimo procesą. Tad Patricką ir pakvietėme į SEB verslo augimo programą pasidalinti su jumis pačiomis veiksmingiausiomis technikomis ir jo patarimais, kaip reikėtų pasiruošti pardavimų strategiją. Dear Patrick, welcome to SEB Growth Program. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much. So it's an absolute pleasure to be here today. I'm going to quickly introduce myself and share my screen. Firstly, I'd like to say it's, 9 o'clock in the morning and you're here listening and engaging. And I'm not sure what the temperature is now, but it was around about -15 this morning. So if you're at home, nice and cozy with a coffee watching this, perfect. If you're at work and trying to develop, great, and everything in between. First of all, I want to thank you for being here because it's a great honor to be able to speak to teams, speak to the Lithuanian public and support them because as you can tell, I'm not Lithuanian. I'm from the UK, but I live in Lithuania. And so a very quick introduction of myself. I'm a father of 2 children and this is very, very recently. So I had a baby boy that was born about 4 weeks ago and it's been a real blessing and feels like an amazing time of the potential of life at the moment and the lack of sleep at the moment also. But from a business perspective, I'm the founder of Prospect Labs, which is one of the leading growth hacking agencies in the Baltics. And what I mean by growth hacking is my expertise is trying to find ways to help your business generate new sales. So growth hacking might seem technical, but it's just maybe you could say a creative agency trying to find ways that are different to just the traditional sales and marketing. I'm also a growth coach to Startup Wise Guys, which is one of Europe's largest B2B accelerators. And there I have to support their startups, I have to support the program and build the infrastructure of how to build a sales program, really. I also work as an advisor to multiple different programs, Swiss Entrepreneur Program, Serbia Chamber of Commerce, and a lot of other businesses. And what this gives me a unique position is I think I could walk into a room and speak for about 2 to 3 minutes and fool anybody on that topic in detail about pretty much any industry, because after that, then maybe, yes, I'm out my depth. But for that few couple of minutes, I think I've worked with so many different industries, so many different jobs, so many different countries. It gives me this unique perspective of how everything crosses over to support each other. Final thing is I've been advisor to a lot of startups throughout my career, and now they're all starting to really grow, raise a lot of money. And this has been in Lithuania, Latvia, and predominantly Estonia. So there's a lot of credibility and a lot of experience behind me of what I've put together today. But before I even start that, I have one question that I always ask everybody, and it's sort of one general question, 4 mini ones, but one general one. And this is not an interactive session. You don't need a message. You don't need to send me a question or that sort of thing. It's just generally these 4 points you should apply to basically everything you're doing. So number one, why are you even here? Why are you watching me today? Have you just stumbled upon this on Facebook? If so, wonderful. Did you book this in advance because you're excited about it? Amazing. But you need to have a motivation, because I'm going to be sharing a lot of information, a lot of context, and I want you to be engaged and know, what do you want to achieve from today? The second thing is, are you actually here? So I know you're watching me, but are you mentally here? Are you thinking about what you're going to have for breakfast? Are you thinking about what you need to do tonight? Are you thinking about what's on Netflix later? I need you present with me. So try and write down a list of things you need to do, get it out your brain, try and close all the tabs, try and switch off your phone, try and be present to say, what I'm going to show you can have a big impact on your business. But if you're just listening in the background, you're going to lose the impact of what I'm trying to show you. The next thing is, how are you going to implement this? So are you going to ask for the slides? Are you going to make some notes? Are you going to research the softwares I show you? Or are you going to be one of these people who watches lots of webinars, reads lots of books, but doesn't actually implement anything? You need to be a person that learns and then does. And this is where you need to think, what are the next steps? And then finally, how are you going to build a relationship with me? If I'm a sort of person that can add value to your business, introduce you to other people, review what you're working on, introduce you to an investor or whoever it might be, how are you going to make me feel special that we build a relationship? Are you going to email me? Are you going to reach out on LinkedIn? Are you going to come to my office and knock on my door? But try and think about every sort of workshop and meeting that you go to, these sorts of core things. What's the point of being here? Am I really engaged here, or is my brain mentally somewhere else? What am I going to do with all the information I'm learning? And how do I build a relationship with that speaker? Because that speaker is in that position from many years of training, learning, development, that sort of thing, to get to a point where they can add value to your business or introduce you to others. So try and apply that. And in this unfortunate COVID Zoom world that we're in, and feels like it's going to be on for a long, long time, you need to find out that the talks are not just for you to absorb, but how do you use that as a benchmark to get to know the speaker? Get to know how they can support you and work with you. And it's always amazing. I share my email. I'm very open with my resources, my content, anything I can do to support people. But it's always a limited number that reach out to me. But those are the ones who reach out to me are so proactive, so needy in a positive way that they want support, that it's great to help people like that. So I'm a very open person. I'll support anybody I can. But I love working with people who are polite, proactive, and pushy. Polite, thanks, Patrick, for the talk. Really appreciate it. Pushy, would love to know if you can introduce me to something. And then proactive, if I don't reply, chase me again and again and again. So the 3 Ps. So that's my sort of foundation for how we start. And today, the next 60 minutes, maybe 90 minutes, we'll see how this goes. The whole talk today is how to build a sales pipeline and choose the marketing channels that bring instant results. So basically, how do you set up your sales structure? How do you figure out which channels to look at? And then what do you do to actually get some leads or sales? And I'll be going through all the terminology of all these different stages. Now, I know this is all in English and obviously to a Lithuanian audience, so I will keep this, I'll try and explain all the different terminology, all the different language. But the way I love to train people is to be able to help them sell in their own country, but also get used to the terminology of how you're selling internationally. And there's a lot of words and phrases here that will help you. So the very first step I think we need to consider is this. Let's not think about sales for the meantime. Let's sort of park sales and think about relationships. And what I want you to do is think about this one. Forget sales, forget business, forget lead generation, LinkedIn, email, all of that. Think about your relationships, either romantic or just personal, social. And the first one is, when was the last time you called a person just to say, how are you? No agenda, no motive. You just wanted to do something for them. When was the last time somebody said to you, do you know what? I've really got a problem. And instead of you said, oh, yes, me too, you said, tell me more. When did you use 2 of these and 1 of these in proportion? And so many times, particularly in the winter, and people have different ailments, different things, but people are always complaining, saying, oh, it's so cold. I've got a bit of a cold. I'm not feeling too well today or something like that. And instead of showing empathy, so many people's natural response is, yes, I'm the same. I've got so many problems, and they make it on them. And what you're basically saying is, I'm not really bothered what you're saying. I'm going to turn the conversation about me. And these 3 words, tell me more, apply to everything. If you get home tonight and you speak to your partner and you're having a conversation and you say, wow, tell me more, you get so much deeper into a conversation because it's not on the surface anymore. They go into more. If you're speaking to a friend and they say, I've got these plans to travel next year, wow, tell me more. And you find that the conversation becomes so much more rich and so much more deeper. And please bear with me. I'm going to explain why all this relates to sales in a second. But when was the last time you actually said to somebody, how are you? And just listened? And then when did you say, tell me more? And you really showed that you cared. You weren't doing this for some sort of agenda or because you feel you have to. You really cared about that person. And then the final one, in your network of friends, do people get excited when you call them? Or they're frustrated as they know you're going to ask for something? So if somebody rings you or you ring them, do you get the phone call and think, oh no, what does he want now? I know it's the same thing. He's going to ask for a favor. He's going to ask for help. He's going to ask for money. Are you one of those people? Or do people see you ringing and say, oh, I haven't spoken to this person for ages. I can't wait to speak to them. And you need to be the latter. You need to be the person that people want to speak to, that you listen, that you care, that you're going to be open. And these foundations are critical to what I'm going to show you about building a sales pipeline. So try and think of this as your personality. When was the last time you said, hey, how's things? Are you free for a call? I'd just love to know how things are going. That's it. And then dig deeper. Tell me more. I would love to know more about what you're working on, what your plans are. Tell me more about the little one. Tell me more about the baby. Tell me more all the time. Brings people out, and you find out the small bits of information which are critical. And then finally, are you the person that's only ringing people for favors, or do you ring people simply to make sure their life is better because you care? And these are foundations that are really, really critical as just being a generally good person and helping other people, but how to be a very good salesperson. So this is the sort of mantra, this is the phrase, the motto, whatever you'd like to call it, that I try and train everyone by. And it's this: give more than you take and you'll receive more than you'll ever need. Now, culturally, I had a big shock when I moved to Lithuania, I think about 4 years ago. So I'm from Newcastle, the northeast of England, just on the border between England and Scotland. And so I moved up to Lithuania with my wife 4 years ago. And I started to do a lot of talks like this, and they were physical talks. And what was very strange is the audience wasn't the same reactions as the audience I'd get in the UK, because when you're giving a talk in the UK, everybody's smiling. You can see their body language to say, okay, they must be enjoying this. So when I was giving a talk, everybody was so serious. And I almost thought, oh no, have I lost my skill? Does people not understand me? But it was culturally learning that in Lithuania, people weren't so open to show their reactions. They were serious and professional, but then they smiled and laughed once we got to know each other. And then the other cultural learning I learned is that at first people were sort of suspicious of, why am I very open to helping people? Why would I give you advice of sales but not charge you for it? Why would I have a coffee with you and spend my time if I'm not going to work with you? What's in it? I'm suspicious. And that was some of the first reactions. And that was quite new to me, because when I've been working in the UK and the US, I've always had this mantra: give more than you take and you'll receive more than you'll ever need. And basically, it's that sort of cycle that I'm going to show you, that by helping people, people constantly see you as this person that they want to support, they want to have in their network, they want to work with you, that sort of thing. So it's a big stereotype. Everybody's different, but there's clearly a different take on this in the UK than in Lithuania of how this sort of feeling worked. And I don't mean waste your time and help everybody and be a charity that you don't do anything but help everybody. That's not what I mean. But what I mean is strategic key relationships that you're trying to build, really put in your time and maintain them. And this is what I'll show you. So try and think of this mantra is, how do you build these relationships, and how do you feel that is everything about me? And a very quick example is, have a look at the emails that you write. And does the left-hand side just look like I? So, hi, Patrick, I'm the founder of this company. I do this for this. I would like to have a call with you. And I learned this a couple of years ago, where I sent an email and the person replied and said, business looks really good. but all you care about is you. And I said, what do you mean? And he showed me all my emails that said, I. And what I realized is I needed to change my correspondence to you. Would you be interested in this? I think I could help your company. How are you doing? Tell me more about you. And then when you change that conversation, this sort of cycle happens. Good. So if you are concerned about selling, and there's all sorts of mixes, you'll get, sometimes I work with companies that are very developer focused. So a lot of developers in the business build a great product, but not too marketing or sales business. And they get very, very frustrated or anxious about how to do sales, how to generate new business, just social interactions. And what I always say to people is, anybody that are in your adult age, you've been selling all of your life. Apologies. You've been selling all of your life and you just don't realize it. So from the very day you're born, the second you were born, you start crying. And that is you saying, I'm going to communicate. I'm going to start this dialogue to say, I need something. Now, it's innate, it's in you, born in you that you don't know what you're doing as a 1-year-old baby, a 1-hour-old baby, but you're born to say your voice is used to try and get something for you. You're communicating straight away. Then as you grow up as a toddler, you start to get a little bit more cheeky and you start to talk a little bit more and you'll say, no, you can't have that. And then you start to negotiate. Well, if I'm a good boy, can I have some sweets? If I really behave, if I go to bed on time, can I watch the TV? You start to get the negotiating skills to say, if I can prove one thing, I can then get the end result. So by the age of 3, you're a trained salesperson. You just don't really realize it because you're not selling a business. You're selling, can I get something for me? Food, sleep, toys, presents, go and sit on Santa's knee, whatever it is. But you're a toddler that's negotiating. Then when you get older, as a teenager, you start to become very good with objections. So you're a 16-year-old and you want to go to a nightclub and your parents are saying you can't go, but they let your big sister go. And you're saying, that's not fair. Why does she get to go? We're both the same age. You can trust me. I promise I'll not behave. I'll not drink alcohol. Why can't you? And you don't take no for an answer. Or you say, I want to go on holiday with my friends. And your parents say, you're too young. You can't go on a holiday. You're only 17. Or I really want to buy something. They say, we can't afford it. And you say, I really need it though. I'm desperate for this new headphones. It's going to be so important to me. So you start to learn to deal with sales objections. You start to get used to saying, I really want something. And if somebody says no, I'm not going to take that as a no. I'm going to try and find a way to get my end result. So you're born communicating, you grow up negotiating, you start to become very, very tough at objections. And then you go into the actual relationships. So I show this a lot because so many people, when they go into sales, they go into this sales mode and this crazy mode of hardcore sales, 10 emails, cold calling, very aggressive. And then I ask them about their personal life and the most caring, empathetic, kind person. And I think, why did you become a sales monster? That's not your personality. So try and find this analogy that I'm trying to show you based on real world relationships and sales. And I promise very soon I will bring this together. Okay, so if you imagine as an adult, 20s, 30s, whatever you want to call as an adult, past teens, you start relationships. And I call this the relationship of sales. And the reason behind this is number 1, dating. So let's talk about this. So how do you actually find somebody that you're attracted to? So if you think about in your teens, you're at school, you're at university, that sort of thing. When you grow older, you start to look at these things online. You look at online dating sites. You have friends who say, oh, you've got to meet my friend, you've got to introduce you. And you start to meet at events. And I want you to start to realize that this is basically what we're calling lead generation. Now, you might find this is a bit silly and it's a bit crass, but I'm not saying you treat relationships like sales. What I'm saying is the core skills you have are already there. You already know the logic. You just haven't applied this in a sales formula. So number 1, trying to say, I'm single, I would love to go on dates. You might go to events, classes, parties, that sort of thing. Your friends might introduce you. You might do online. And then phase 2, when you actually go on the date, how do you prepare? Do you get dressed up well? Do you get there early? Do you prepare on what you're going to talk about? Do you make sure you sit at somewhere relevant? Do you research where you're going to go? And then more importantly, during the date, do you listen well? Do you hear what the person's saying, or do you make it all about you? Do you ask them to really lots of interesting things? Do you say, tell me more? And then after the date, how long does it take before you message them? Now, this is so funny, and I'm not doing a poll here, but what's very interesting is when I ask this question, women often say, I don't message, they should message me. And the men say, well, it depends how much I like them. So there is definitely a consistency. But what's very funny is if I say, how long after the date? It ranges from 1 hour, I'm in the taxi back and I text to say I had a great time, to the next day, to a couple of days later, playing it cool and let's see what happens. And then I say, okay, how do you remove the relationship forwards? So if you have a great time, you text and say, I really enjoyed the date tonight, would love to meet up again. What do you do if they don't reply? Do you text them again and again and again? Because that gets a little bit weird. So you all know this internally, that if you have a date with somebody and message them 2 or 3 times, they never reply, they're sort of giving you a hint they're not interested. Also, how long do you want to wait until you ask to meet again? Do you say straight away, or do you give them time to think about it before you say, let's meet? And then the final one, what do you do if they say, you're a lovely person, but I'm not into you? Can you deal with that? Can you say, okay, that's no problem? Or do you get personally really upset? Do you really overthink why it happened and it impacts you personally? So these are all the phases that we talk about. And then there's 2 final ones. Meeting the friends, the relationship is progressing and this person wants to introduce you to the social circles. And you try and say, well, how do you impress them? How do you prove that you're a great partner? You really care about this person. How do you get that validation from external people to say they really care for you? And then the big one, you're really, really getting serious. You're thinking about getting married and you get to meet the parents. How do you get the parents to like you? How do you get the parents to sign off and say, yes, you're the one for my son, you're the one for my daughter. We acknowledge this. We say we approve this. We're a fan. Now, all of these things I've showed you for the first, 20 minutes, you probably think of, why have I signed up to a sales webinar and I'm talking about dating? And this is why. We've actually just been building all of your sales pipeline in a way that I find the easiest to explain and the most interesting. So if you have a look at the left-hand side, this is where you're thinking, looking for a date. So you're trying to find people online, your friends are referring you, whatever you call about. And that's basically lead generation in a sales capacity. How do you find people who are interested in your product, wherever it is? In dating, you might say Tinder. In business, you might say LinkedIn. Now, you're not on LinkedIn in a relationship capacity. These are 2 totally things, and please don't get them mixed up. But what I'm trying to say is you have these skill sets anyway. Looking for a date, you might say to your friends, does anybody know anybody who think would be interested in meeting me? That's the same as asking your customers, can you refer me to any businesses that are interested in working with me? Looking for a date, you might think, I'm going to start going to clubs, I'm going to start going to courses, I'm going to start doing things where I might be around like-minded people. In a business capacity, it's the same thing. You start going to events, trade shows to find like-minded people. The outcome is just relationship or buy your product. So when you look at this, which is the sales pipeline, you can see lead generation. Then the first date is like saying, let's get the first meeting booked in. They want to meet you. Then when you're messaging them to say, would you like to meet up again? In businesses, is a pending decision. They've met you, they've thought about your product, they've tried something, but they're still not sure yet. Then the next one, we're saying meet the friends, where you're getting to know external people, social circles, that sort of thing. In a business capacity, this might be external shareholders. You've met the salesperson, but now the CEO wants to meet you and now wants to get this signed off. So again, you've got to impress them. You've got to have a board meeting with 5, 6 people there to say, let's get this signed off. And then the final one, which I call meet the parents, it's getting it signed off. Can the finance department sign this off? Can the CEO, can the owner sign this off and say, yes, it's done? Now, obviously, there's so many different varieties of a lead generation. But all I wanted to teach you is any of you out there that are panicking, thinking, I don't know anything about sales, you're born to be a salesperson. As human beings, we have to be able to react, interact, negotiate, deal with objections, deal with heartbreak, deal with pain. You're built to be an amazing salesperson. But when we start talking about sales, for some reason, people go crazy. So my goal today is to take that training from relationships and everything that you already have and fine tune it and polish it into a business capacity. So just to confirm, I am not a relationship advisor. I'm not a dating trainer or anything like that. All I'm trying to show you is for me to be able to train people, I need to make them comfortable with themselves. I need to make them love themselves to say, I'm proud of who I am. I'm happy with my voice. I'm happy with how I look. Because you need the confidence when you're selling a product that the variable is not your insecurity. The variable should be not the right customer, too expensive, whatever the reasons. But you need to go into a sales relationship being really confident to say, I love what I do. I want to get to know people. I want to help people. I'm a really good energy to be around. And that's when I was saying at the very start of this talk, how do you build those relationships? So here's an example of a sales pipeline. And this is often for a software business, for example. You get a new lead. Somebody signs up on your website or messages you and say, I would like to know more information. Then you send them a link to your diary or you ask the best time, they book a meeting. Then you do the meeting and they either say pending decision where they're thinking about it, or might go to something like proof of concept or sending contract, sending invoice, that sort of thing. Then the next stage will be, this could either be proof of concept or could be a trial or could be a second demo. It's getting closer to the end point of sales, but not quite there yet. And then the final one is a paying customer. Now, although this is the sales pipeline, this is not the end of the journey because it's really the start of the journey. So when so many people say sales is so tough, it's so hard to get people buying, I would say getting people buying is sort of the easy thing. The hard thing is actually keeping them or maybe upselling, getting them to buy more or referring more people. So when you have this whole sales cycle, you need to think of it's from new lead to paying customer, from paying customer to buying again, from buying again to referring more people. And even if they leave, how to get them back as a customer. So the sales pipeline is like your life cycle. First date, second date, in a relationship, meet the friends, meet the parents, get married, all that sort of thing. You have this sort of pipeline from stranger to best friends. And for sales, that's from stranger to paying customer and how you do this. So I hope this logic makes sense for you, but I wanted to show you that whole sales pipeline and the logic of how you can all build your own pipeline, because just the general idea from going from one starting point throughout to become a customer. Okay. Next thing I want to show you is actually how do you boost the sales? How do you, when you have this sales pipeline and this framework in place, the next step is, well, what's my technique? Not where do I find people or the methods or channels I use, but what's my technique? How do I actually interact with people? Now, I will talk about this very short, but this could be a talk in its own sense about how to speak, how to interact, that sort of thing. But I want to show you two strategies that I think have the most impact on your business. And at the very start of the talk, I asked you all, why are you here? And the reason I asked why is because everything I do tries to have a purpose. I'm naturally inquisitive. I want to know more all the time. I'm a real pain for some people because if I try something, I'll ask why 100 times until I'm there. But the reason being, I don't like working hard. I like working hard to get results. And I think a lot of people work hard and they think that's enough. And I remember, if anybody's watched The Office, Michael, the manager, says a very funny quote to say, I like Jim, but he's not so smart. It takes him only an hour where I take all day to get it done. He's not that hardworking. It really makes me laugh because the person who takes an hour to get something done is way more effective and efficient than the person who takes a day to get it done. So hard work is irrelevant if you don't have the output. So you need efficiency and effectiveness, and you need them both together. So when we speak about the two strategies, there's all sorts of strategies you could do, but these are the two that I think will have the biggest impact on your business and the quickest. And these are referrals and asking for feedback. So the very first one, referrals. And this phrase is, what is your viral coefficient? Now, you might think this is jargon. You might think this is not so relevant, but the viral coefficient is what ratio of people that sign up introduce somebody else. So if you think about YouTube when it first came out, their viral coefficient was something like 1 to 200 people. Literally everybody that tried YouTube would tell everybody they knew, you've got to try this out. And in more recent times, TikTok. In more recent times, softwares like Clubhouse. There's certain things that go viral because everybody says you have to do this. Now, in a traditional business, this is very difficult because the whole word viral is frustrating. You can't build something viral. Something goes viral because it's out of control. So if it's out of control, how are you going to build it because you don't know how to control it? So you need to find a way that you push things that builds this virality, that builds things that everybody wants to work with you. So the very first question is, for every person who works with you, how many people do they recommend? So if I think about a lot of the companies I've worked with, and I've actually documented, I would think some people have recommended me 10, 15 businesses, maybe even 20 in the past 2 years, based on how am I building the relationship. But it's two-way. They don't just send clients, I say, thanks, that's all. You maintain the relationship. And the other thing is, how much easier is it if I said to any of you, oh, I love what you do. I've got a friend. I would love to try it out. I would love to know more. How easy is it for you to actually sign that person up instead of you trying to go cold, find people, educate them, tell them what you do, build their trust, make sure it's the right timing, make sure the pricing's okay, then sign them up. All that sort of section has been bypassed simply by somebody making a referral. Because if they make a referral, they say, I already trust you know what you're doing. I already trust your brand. I pretty much just want to know a bit more information about what you do, but I'm willing to give it a go because I trust the referral that has brought it in. So try and build your business around referrals. And a lot of people will say, well, this is not scalable. I would say there's nothing more scalable than having an army of people out there introducing people to you for zero money. That's the most scalable thing you can ever do. The most unscalable thing is having a sales team of 20 trying to do everything and paying them huge wages when you could have had these business relationships, people introducing for you. So the one sort of phrase, and you don't need to use this exactly the same, but this sort of logic is I say to everybody, first of all, I show energy. I really appreciate the opportunity to work with you. I say that to my clients. I'm blessed. I feel so lucky. I said this today and I'm genuine. Getting this opportunity to speak to you today is a huge thing for me. And the same thing, if a company actually wants to work with me, pay me their hard-earned money, I'm really appreciative and I value that. And the second thing, even more so, not that I just get to work with you, but I've actually helped you. We've got results. So I say, I really appreciate the opportunity to work with you. And I'm so happy to hear that we've helped you. And then the next thing, I would say, is there anyone else in your network who could benefit in the same way? And it feels great. If you've just done a project for a client, they say, I love it. The website looks great. The product looks great. The sales are growing, whatever you've helped them with. And then you say, love working with you. I'm glad you got results. Is anybody else that could benefit from this? If you want to be even more pushy, you could say, I would love to know, do you have 3 people you could introduce me to? And this rule of 3 makes you sort of curl up. When you say it, you just think, I can't believe I've said that. And then people say, okay, here's a list. It's a weird thing, but as a salesperson, it's so unusual. You wouldn't say to a friend, can you introduce me to 3 people? It's so weird. But in a sales capacity, if you said, I'm trying to find 3 more companies who I can work with, are there anybody in your network that you think this could be relevant to? And the weird thing is, if you just say, could you introduce me? They'll think, no, I'll have a look. If you say 3, they sort of feel like they've got a to-do list now. It's in their brain to say, well, I've got to give them 3 people. It's very strange how it works, but it does work. And the reason I know this is one of my very, very first jobs was sales of cold calling. And when I was calling, the sales manager said to me, you have 100 people to speak to. You need to turn this into about 1,000. And I said, well, I can just search for 1,000. She said, no, you have 100 people and every person you speak to needs to refer somebody. So I said to him, so do you mean the people that are happy? And she said, yes. If people want to work with you, say to them, do you know anybody else who could refer you? And then I said to her, so what about the people who aren't happy? She said the same thing. So I thought, okay. So when I was ringing people and they said, do you know what? I appreciate your call, but this is not for me. Apologies. This is not for me. Then I would say, okay, no problem. Do you know anybody else that could benefit from this? So even people who weren't interested, I was still asking for referrals. So think of your business structure as like a honeycomb of building and building and building and building. And it's building blocks where everybody's linked to somebody that ends up referring to you. So when you're trying to grow your business, step 1 is your referral network. how many people out there are working for you with goodwill that say, I love what these people are doing, I'll always introduce. So myself, for example, I want to be known as the go-to guy for lead generation, for sales training in Lithuania. The brand that I'm trying to work really hard to build is anybody who'll say, I'm really struggling with my sales. Oh, you've got to speak to Patrick. He's a great guy. He'll look after you. He'll have a call. That's what I want. Not, you've got to speak to Patrick. He's crazy expensive, but you might be able to work with him, because that's not how it works. I want to say, anybody who needs help, I'll find time to have a call, see if I can support them. And if we can work together, great. If not, I'll introduce you to somebody. But that's the brand that I want. And so when you're building your business, how many people are out there that will do this for you? And if we go back to the start of the talk, I asked you a few questions. Number one, when was the last time you called a friend to say, how are they? Now let's change this to business. When was the last time you called a client just to say, how's their business going? Nothing to do with how are they finding your product, but just how's their business going? So I try to do this once per week if I can. Very difficult, and particularly in December, it's crazy busy. But what I try to do is speak to a customer and not say, how are you finding my software that you're using? But I just say, how's business going? Is there anything I can help you with? Are there any introductions you need? Are there any parts of your business where you're not sure what to do? And often I'll have chats with people about hiring, about team building, nothing to do with my product, but it's everything to do with my product because he's my customer or she's my customer. So when we're thinking about building relationships, are you actually speaking to your customers just to say, how can I develop your business? Because the likelihood is if they're a customer of yours and their business grows, more often their purchases with you grows as well. So you want all of your customers to grow, buy more, order more, and just generally help them. It's an amazing thing when you can help your user base to say, we've grown our company, we've got through the tough times of COVID, that sort of thing. The other thing is when you're speaking to your customers, do you say to them, tell me more, or are you actually just eager to get off the call because you don't want to speak to them? So if a customer says, actually, December's been crazy, we had a real problem with COVID. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear about that. Tell me more, what's been happening? People are shocked and say, wow, you actually care. So, of course, tell me what's going on in your life, in your business. And you'll be amazed that the sales are often not just about your product and not just about the timing or the pricing, but it's all the bits in between. Can they trust you? Do they like you? Do they prefer to work with you over somebody else? And often that's nothing to do with your product. That's to do with the small talk about being caring and being bothered about them. And some of the problems I've had with training salespeople is they're not educated enough on the world. They're educated only on the product. So somebody would say, oh, by the way, great to speak to you. Where are you from? Oh, I'm from Egypt. Do you know anything about Egypt? Can you have a conversation about Egypt? Can you have a conversation about blockchain technology? Can you have a conversation about speaking multiple languages? Can you have a conversation about football? What I mean is, can you be very good at the small talk of so many things that a conversation goes from personal to business in such a smooth transition that people don't even realize because you're just very easy to talk to. Next thing, ringing your customers, asking, tell me more, and just really caring and getting to know them. So that's what I mean by building your referrals. You have to nurture this. And if you think about any of your customers at the moment, think about mindset. Mentally, I am so excited about Christmas. I've got 2 children, Santa's coming, snow's here, fire on. I can visualize Christmas, reading a book and being so happy. It's been a very, very busy year. So what would be amazing is if anybody reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to grab a coffee next week? Because I'm in such a good mood. I'm busy, but I'm in such a good mood to help. And think about your customers. How many of your customers are just stuck at office, counting down the time until they get the Christmas holiday? They would love to get out the office. They would love to have a chat, love to just get out of the mundane of ticking down the time until Christmas comes. So try and find a way to build those relationships with your current user base, because for every one customer, they should lead to 2 or 3 more, if not 4 or 5. Now, from a startup basis, that some of you might be here in Lithuania with a really striving network. I remember I worked with one startup and the investors said, we want a negative churn. Basically, what they said is, we don't want any of your customers to ever leave, but not only do they never leave, they also bring in new people And that's very, very difficult to do. So how do you build a business where people love it, they stay, and they bring all of their network to want to work with you as well? And it's not about Facebook ads, viral marketing, anything. It's about you as a business owner, you as a salesperson, wanting to understand that other person, what's going on in their life, and how can I support their business? And the outcome leads to using your product, scaling your product, and also staying with you for a long time. So my tips to any of you out there that are salespeople, fine-tune your small talk. If you know about a platform called Reddit, reddit.com, go to a channel called reddit.com, Today I Learned. And every day, just learn a few small facts, something really, really interesting. So for example, I learned yesterday that the majority of your talk and how people perceive your talk is majorly based on how well you're introduced. So if somebody introduces you to a talk and they say, Patrick's great, he's a wonderful speaker, he's going to really help you. After the talk, if you say to people, how did you find it? Most people naturally say it was great just from that intro. Likewise, if people say, here's Patrick, he's not so good, but it's all we could get for today. There you go. People will perceive the talk is not very good. So try and find a way of looking at small talk, looking at how to be interesting, looking at always having different information to just be engaging with your customers and new business, and even maybe your staff as well. Good. So the next one is asking for feedback. So my general question is, why sound like a salesperson where you're really trying to be pushy when you can change the dynamics and make the other person feel like they're in control of the conversation? So look at both sides of these conversations. They achieve the same thing, but in a totally different way. So when I say don't do this, what I am saying is when you message somebody on email, LinkedIn, even if you speak to them directly, a lot of people would say, hi, first name. So hi, James, at Prospect Labs, we help startups to generate new business. Are you free for a call where we can show you how to use our product? That side, the one in black and white, is about me. We help companies in this industry to do this. Can I give you a demo about our product to sign you up because I want to hit my sales targets? That's all about me. Now, that will still work sometimes, but not so much, because what's in it for the person on the other side? Now, changes to the green. Hey, James, we're a new business helping startups in Lithuania. And as an expert in this space, I would love to get some of your feedback on what we've built. Are you free for 30 minutes this week? What I'm generally saying is I'm in awe of how good you are, of how experienced you are, of your expertise in this space. I would love to just get some of your time to show you what we're working on and see what you think. Now, doing that 100 times a month, 100 times a year, you'll be amazed by people say, wow, this is actually quite cool. And you can say, well, if you'd like, we can try it out. We can give you a demo if you want to test it out. So the logic is different, and you're not trying to trick people. But I don't want to sign people up that don't need something. I want the feedback to say, could this help you? And if it can we improve it? Can I get your feedback? Do you want to try it? So when you're doing the sales, you're building up your referral network, which is one major thing. And then the other thing is you're trying to say, can I get feedback instead of can I sell? So any of you that have new businesses and you're trying to validate, is this going to work? Is this going to sell? Use this template. We're building this business. I would love to get your feedback of what you think. Now, all those people that give your feedback are also all the people that will potentially buy it when it goes live. So you're not just doing this just for data. You're doing this to build up a waiting list. And my one criticism sometimes when I speak to startups in particular or new businesses is they feel it's an exercise just to get data. We've done market research and these 50 people have said they like it. I would say, great. Well, are those 50 people now ready to buy it? And have you put their name, email, phone number? So try and make sure that when you're asking for feedback, you're doing it in a way where you're building up a database, you're building relationships, and you're trying to get people on calls to get to know them and trying to make the sale that way. And this works from startup to established business. It's the same thing. I see you're a manager in your space, a big fan of what you're doing. Would love to get your feedback on what we've created. Do you think this could help you? And this closing line is really important. So if you think of closing, that sort of cheesy picture where somebody's shaking the hand and it's like the deal is done, that sort of thing. There's no such thing as closing, because nobody that you want to sign up should be signing up based on being rushed, based on a gut decision. They should sign up because they want a long-term relationship with you. Now, even if you've got a product that is just a one-off product, you want them to have a long-term relationship with your brand, where they really like what you do and they like the posts and they share to their network and that sort of thing. So how do you build these relationships? And it's by getting people to say, can I get your feedback on what we're doing? And that's how you can really grow this. Good. So 1 second. So if you think about where we're up to at the moment here, and I hope you're finding this interesting so far, and you're at home, you've got your coffee, you've got biscuits, whatever it is, you're at work. And I've tried to take you through this journey so far from the relationship of sales, how your day-to-day activity is, or how you've grown up is very much implemented on how you do sales. And then we've talked about these two key areas where you can build sales in the right way. And this is from referrals, or this is from asking for feedback. Now, the next thing is, if you know how to speak to people, and if you know the admin of how to organize people in the different stages, the next question is, where do you look? Now, I need to be quite general here because everybody's business has different things. And I usually train people to say, the riches are in the niches. And what I mean by this is, although your audience could be all over the world, you want to find somebody who's exactly your audience. Age, sex, location, interests, what they buy, I don't know, what they read, where they look at, what softwares they use. There's an audience out there that can be very, very defined for you. And so there's two ways how I do this. So the three that I'm going to show you today is LinkedIn, email, and communities. Now, this is relevant for business to business and for business to consumer. It's fine for both. So let's start with LinkedIn. So I'm going to share my screen actually to show you on LinkedIn in a second, but I just want to show you 4 things because I think people underestimate LinkedIn in a massive way. So LinkedIn has 750 million people on it. And if you think of moving forward, for most businesses, obviously not all, so maybe agriculture is not so relevant, but most industries, every customer you ever sign up will have a LinkedIn profile. Every person you hire moving forward will probably be on LinkedIn. If you raise investment from everybody, they'll probably be on LinkedIn. If you work with any bloggers or influencers or PR, they'll probably have a profile on LinkedIn. So my general question is, if all your customers you'll ever sign up with, in general, I appreciate some aren't, then why aren't you on this? Why aren't you great at this? And I would split this into 4 areas. Number 1, your first impressions. How do people perceive you? And I say this, headshots is a yes, selfies on holiday like this, or that model pose, definitely not. And I'll show you a few tips of this in a second. Number 2, how do you actually find your audience? How do you navigate LinkedIn to find those specific people? And I'll show you that in a second. 3, how are you building your brand? So when I said I want to be known as the go-to person for lead generation and sales training in Lithuania, does anybody know that? Does anybody get to read about me? Does anybody know how I train? So building my brand is something like this. I get the opportunity to engage with you and show how I work. Not relevant for everybody, but the ones who really like me, great. That's building my awareness. And finally, one trick called LinkedIn newsletters, which a lot of you might not know about or not doing, but can be highly powerful. So let me just share my LinkedIn profile. Hopefully you can see this okay. Any problems, I'm sure they'll let me know. But the general idea is LinkedIn profile. And very, very quickly, when you go to a meeting and you think about a face-to-face meeting, and even think of this in relationships, how often do you think about what you wear? And I remember when I was 16, 17, I was going on a date, I would really be worried. Is this a good t-shirt? Should I wear a jumper? Should I wear jeans? Should I wear a hat? Should I wear glasses? You really think about it because what you're thinking of is, how is that person going to be perceiving me? Now, from a relationship point of view, you're saying, I want that person to be attracted to me. From a business perspective, you want that person to trust you, to respect you, not to be attracted to you. So when you do this in a face-to-face, you wear a suit, you wear a dress, you wear something that you say, I want you to perceive me as professional, as educated, as you can trust me. So you wouldn't go to a huge business meeting dressed in shorts and t-shirt thinking, oh, it doesn't matter, it's about what I'm talking about. because the first seconds of a meeting, someone's already made the mind up of you simply because how you dress and your body language. Even today, within seconds of coming in, you've made your decision on me, my glasses, my background, my voice. You've already made a quick decision, even if you know it or not, that if you like me or not, if you trust me or not, if you're going to continue listening to me or not. And it's unfair. People need a chance to introduce themselves, but generally your gut feeling is that fight or flight sort of survival. You're built to make decisions with people very quickly to say, am I in danger or not? Now, this doesn't really work well with LinkedIn because you're not in danger, but you need to be able to build your profile that represents your physical persona. So I'm wearing jeans, suit, and t-shirt. What that says to me is I want to be smart and professional, but I'm not wearing a full suit because it's too corporate. I want to wear jeans. I want to be a bit more comfortable. The same thing with my LinkedIn profile. I want to be perceived as somebody professional, trustworthy, but also with a sense of humor, also a little bit individual. And so I'm going to give you just a few very quick tricks. Number one, profile picture, headshot, face, simple as that. Don't have glasses, blurred, even things in the background. Just let people look at your profile and all you want them to think is trust. Not attracted, not funny, not cool, not massively memorable, just trust. And you can see here when you look down, really trust that one, really, really trust that one. Yes, to a degree, although he is very purple. This one, yes and no, because there's a lot going on. This one, yes and no, but a bit of a blurred background. So try and make sure you do that. Next, your background. This is like the top half of your website. This is like your business card. Don't just leave it blurred. Update something that can really help you. And there's a software called Canva, Canva.com. And Canva has pre-built templates that you can use and just edit a few things to make it look unique. But don't lose the chance of first impression, of being perfect. Great. Final things I want to show you just on profile, because it could be a long time. So just quick things, your tagline. And your tagline is what people read at first impression. And what I mean by this is that when you're trying to build your network and connect, here's your tagline. And Ronaldus, if you're on the call now, I'm not picking on you, apologies. All I'm saying is Ronaldus says founder at Rent for Fleet. Now that's great. I know he's founded a business. So he's the decision maker. He's the person of influence, but I don't know anything else about him. So what makes him unique? And so he could say, like I do here, founder of Prospect Labs, but I also say startup growth. That's my key. So you could have said founder of Fleet, helping people to find their perfect car or something like that. So when people connect with me, give them a chance to, at a glance, know what they're doing. And the final thing here is small talk. When we think about small talk, think about how do you become that little bit individual to anybody else? Now, on my profile, I say ex-professional footballer. And you'll be amazed at the amount of people who message me and say, who did you play for? And by the end of the conversation, I would say, please sign here, as in let's work together. The small talk is to start the relationship. And a very good point on this is, if you all look back to your current relationship or relationships you've been in the past, what was the very, very first thing you ever said to your partner? And so many people would say things like, I can't remember, I was drunk. I really can't remember. I just said, hey, I'm Pat, or something like that. And the point is, most people can't remember. The conversation just started from something. And this is the same here. Giving people a chance to start a conversation that doesn't have to be about your business, just gives them a chance to start and get the ball rolling. And by the time the conversation finishes, it had nothing to do with what it started on, but that was just to start it. So try and find a way of your profile picture, your background image, and then the tagline that represents what you do, the impact of what you do, and a little bit of something individual about you. And I'll see very quickly if I can find Laura's, because I really like this one. And this is Laura Haldane. Here we go. So Laura said, head of sales and marketing. Great. That's her job title. Irish genealogy expert. So that's relevant to her business. But then she also says Game of Thrones extra. I say, wow, you've been on Game of Thrones. I would love to know about that. So when I had a sales call with her, because I was interested in working with her business, We talked about Game of Thrones for about 10 minutes first, and she must almost have a sales script where she just talks about Game of Thrones and then talks about the business. So a lot of you might say, oh, that's so unprofessional, I couldn't do that. What's unprofessional about being personal? LinkedIn doesn't belong to the company. This LinkedIn profile belongs to the person. It's their CV, it's their digital persona. And why be so corporate and professional when you can be the same, but also a little bit more interesting? So it's just an angle to show you, but I just wanted to mention that. Good. So if you had your LinkedIn profile optimized, looking good, it's the same thing, you're all dressed up, ready to go. I just want to show you the 4 quickest ways to find your audience, and probably in the importance of how I find them. So number 1, I'm just going to use startup as an example, but you could type anything. You click startup, and then if you click events at the top, what you can see is all the events that are taking place. And if you find an event where you think, actually, this could be really good for me, so I'm going to look at this one, the UK Startup Conference. I train startups, I'm from the UK, surely it would make sense that I can find my target audience in here. And if I just quickly do this for you to show you what it looks like, here you go. So this is what it looks like. And if you click attend, you can, and you don't have to add to your calendar, but then if you click here, all the attendees, you can now see everybody that's attending. So instead of you having to go to a trade show, instead of you having to find loads of people, just find an event, look at the people, and that's your target audience. And now you can start messaging them and speaking to them. And what's even better is, even if you're not connected to that person, because you're both registered at the same event, you can now start. And this is what LinkedIn called networking. You can message each other as part of an event without being connected to the person. So step number 1, I say to everybody, is register for events, see the people there, start to speak to them, and just start a conversation. Hey, Andrew, I saw you attending the UK Startup Conference. Would love to have a chat, get your feedback on what we're doing, see if it's something that could help you. Ask for feedback, but based on something personalized. So number 1 is events. Number 2, in the very same way, if you have a keyword of whatever your business does, instead of events, choose groups. And I think it's this one here. So I can see there's 53,000 people, 750,000. So you don't need to work so hard on finding your target audience, because they might already be in a group. It's like walking around town looking for a group of people, and you go down the street and suddenly they're all there together. Great, I found them. I can now speak to them. This is what it's like. So if you request to join a group, which looks like this, and you can click to request to join, how it looks like, and I'll show you here, is this is the one I am part of in Lithuania. And it's great. 700 people here that are all interested in startups, and the admin of the group is co-founder of Bolt. So it's a really, really well-moderated, high-quality group. But if you click see all, again, you can now see all the people that are in the group, and you can message anybody like this, even if they're not a connection. So my day-to-day activity on LinkedIn as a salesperson, I can find events, I can find groups, I could message 100 people per day and still keeps the account very, very safe. So that's groups and events. Final 2 I want to show you is basic search. So if you click search and then press enter, and then if you click on all filters and you filter out the people who are not in your network, you filter out the country, and then you go all the way to the bottom, there's an option here called title. Now, I usually want to target more than one title. So if I only choose founder, I would miss the other people. What about CEO? What about head of sales? So if you just do space and then capital O, it lets you do a mixed search, and it brings all the people here. Now, there you go. I've got 10,000 people. However, for all of these 10,000 people, I want to get this down to a much more specific audience. So the final trick is up here. If you put in a keyword, and let's try startup, for example, there you go. I've now got 300 people who are all in my space, startup founders, salespeople, or managers in Lithuania that I've never spoken to before. And here we go. I could message all of them and couldn't help all of them, and not all of them would want my help. But I could definitely say that I could add value to them and it would be worth the conversation. And that's lead generation. So you already know about this. You look at Tinder, you swipe left, swipe right, you go on dates, you go on online, whatever. This is it, lead generation. You're looking for companies to say, can I work together with you? And you just need to know where to look. So a basic search, LinkedIn posts, LinkedIn events and LinkedIn groups, I would say are the main ones. And that's why I've said it, searches, events, groups. And the final one is just posts. Now, posts are not so powerful, but it's still worth trying. So again, if you put in your keyword like that, and click startup, and then you click on posts at the very top, you can then see all the people that are talking about startups. Here you go. And this person said, good things come to those who wait. We've just launched our product here. And this is all about that business. So if you think that your target audience are the same as their target audience, you can click to see all the people who like the posts. And then again, all these people are interested in that person, so they might be interested in you. Now, you can't just message them. You would have to connect, message, whatever it might be. But the general idea is, again, it's a way to find people. And the reason I've showed you all these approaches is because when people are doing lead generation, they usually say, I'm going to find my audience and just sell direct. Now, how is that personalized? How is that trying to engage with people in the right way? So what I try and do is say, find something in common. We're both at the same event. We're both like the same post. We're both part of the same group. So, hi, Patrick, we're both part of the same group. As you're an expert working at startups, I would love to get your feedback on if our software could help you or some of your portfolio. Are you free for chat next week? And that's your approach, asking for feedback with a personalized approach and a personalized message. Now, you can automate all of this. You can use lots of different software, and that's where my business comes in. But predominantly, it's about finding the audience first, or none of this works. Good. So I hope that helps so far. In terms of creating content, engaging with people, I just want to show you one trick that can help you the most, and that's this. Although it's getting a little bit monotonous, and a lot of people are doing it, LinkedIn polls really, really work. And what I mean by a poll is if you click here, start a post, click this button, and then say create a poll, you can add up to, I think it's 4 questions, about 30 characters each. So you could ask a question, and in the example, they say, how do you get to work? Public, drive, carpool, other, that sort of thing. And if you do a poll, and I'll show an example, what you can do is attract people to learn about you. And I'll show you a very quick example here of the polls I've done. And a poll is to say, can I learn about new people and what they're doing? So if we show you this one here, I'll find a good one for you. This one here. So my poll was, I work with lots of different startups, and I find that they try 2 techniques. They try to do too much marketing, or they try and do it very focused. Which one do you do? Growth hacking or growth stacking? And if you do a poll, here we've got 40 votes. Sometimes people get hundreds of votes. If you get that, you can then click on it, and you can see all the different people and how they voted. Now, this person here, Vidotis, technical success manager. So in theory, he could be my target audience. Now, who knows? But he's engaged with one of my posts. So I haven't come to him. He's came to me and voted. And so from there, I could then reach out to him and say, hey, Vidas, thanks for liking the post. Great to get your engagement. This is what I do. Would love to get your feedback. Do you want to call? And I hope you get the message. I'd love to get your feedback. But by doing a poll, it raises awareness on LinkedIn. It gets lots of people to engage. And then your LinkedIn account starts to get healthier because you're now creating more content and you're being seen by way more people. Here, 5,000 people. If you do this really, really well, I've seen people get 10,000, 20,000, 50,000. So it's trying to find the most effective way. And if you're not so comfortable on LinkedIn and content, do a poll and just ask questions. And again, it's about feedback. We're releasing a new product. We're trying this. So can we get your feedback? That sort of thing. Good. Final one I want to show you on this is LinkedIn newsletters. And this is a really creative opportunity that you have. So if you think about my network, I've got 19,000 people. It's been growing for a long time. But a lot of those 19,000, I'm not sure how many actually know exactly what I do, or even if I live in Lithuania. There's so many Lithuanian businesses who think I'm based in England. It's like, no, I live in Vilnius. If you want a coffee, want to meet, want to work together, let me know. So what a newsletter can do is on your profile, if you click this button to say creator mode on, it'll let you do a few things. It'll let you do LinkedIn Live on newsletters. And LinkedIn Live is a little bit like the webinar today. This is going live to Facebook and going live to other channels. You can do your own stream on LinkedIn and make it live that everybody on LinkedIn can see this, but also stream to other places. But the other one is newsletters. And a newsletter looks like this. So when you create a newsletter like this person, it automatically sends all your network to say, do you want to subscribe? And then after that, when you click on newsletters, you can see your own. So I launched this last Friday, and there's 3,700 subscribers already, and I've already done one blog. I need to do next one probably next week. But the idea behind this, if I post, suddenly 3,700 people are getting an alert on LinkedIn to read about me. Now, a lot of you might say, but my target audience might not be on LinkedIn. There's some of your audience on LinkedIn, and you raising your brand as a founder, a business owner, an entrepreneur is a positive thing, even if you're selling a product that's an e-commerce product or something like that. But generally, raising your brand as a business owner can be a positive thing, and it builds more network. And from network, that's where you nurture these relationships to want to work with you, introduce people, that sort of thing. Good. So there's a lot of information there that I've shared, but generally getting the most out of LinkedIn, your profile, finding your audience, creating content, maybe just with polls is very quick. And then a newsletter to go out with people means mass output, but very little maintenance and very little work to do. Finally, email. So email is difficult because a lot of people say, well, I'll try email, but I didn't get many good results. And the problem they have with this is they send to generic email, info@sales@support@. Every email you send should be a personalized email with the first name to a business email address. And to find people's emails, I use this tool called Snowvio, this one here. And what the software does is let you convert anybody's LinkedIn profile, website, Google search. You can search by products or technology they use and turns it into email addresses. And then from there, you can run email campaigns from the software. So have a look at this tool because this does three things. It scrapes email addresses and finds business email. And business email is critically important for GDPR to make sure you're compliant with how you're sending. So it finds business emails. Number two, it validates the emails. So it makes you sure this person's email will not bounce. And then number three, it actually sends the email. It's an email sender provider. And even four, to a slight degree, they've just released a new sales system that has a sales pipeline. So in theory, all of this can really, really help you to not just focus on LinkedIn, but to find anybody's email address and test it out. And so I really, really recommend that software there. Good. So we're getting towards the end of the talk, and I want to just show you a few final little bits to wrap this up. So final thing I've showed you is community. So a lot of people, when they have a new business idea, they think, I need to get a really good product, I need to get a lot of good sales, and then I'll build a community who'll buy it. And it's a little bit backwards. I usually say, day one, you've had an idea, build a community. And your community can be via LinkedIn events or Facebook groups. But basically, a community is when you're training people on how to do something, educating them on a space. You might be question and answering with somebody else, but you're raising a network of people who are interested in the space you're an expert in. So an event, if you have a look at all of these, my business is called Prospect Labs, but none of these events are how to use Prospect Labs. It's about training people and helping people with the outcome that some will use my software, some will work with me as a consultant. A lot of people will benefit from this, but not work with me, and I'm totally fine with that. But it's a really good way for you to get better and more comfortable with public speaking by just committing to do something like this. So on LinkedIn, things like LinkedIn events are a really amazing way to grow your network and get tens, 20, hundreds, sometimes thousands of people all watching you to learn what you do. And if you do it on LinkedIn Live, not only does it go to all the people who register, everybody in your network gets a pop-up message to say, Patrick's now live, watch him. So LinkedIn events, I implore you to say, please look at this. And if you're worried about public speaking, then how are you going to sell? You need to be comfortable with your voice. If you're worried that it's too much work to organize, then get somebody to help you create the slides and I'll make introductions. If you're worried that you don't have time to do it, if you have time to make sales, you have time once a month to do an event. And if you've got worried you've got nothing to say, interview somebody who does have something to say. But whatever you say is the issue, I'll say, I don't believe it. Give it a go. Try it out. If you say that nobody else is doing events like this in your space, Great. Be the person who's doing events. Now, an example would be, I think it was last year ago on the this exact program, there was a company I was doing urban beekeeping. And his problem was, I know exactly what I can do. I put beehives on top of roofs and then commercial spaces. It's great, but I can't find anybody who wants this. And my advice to him was, stop looking for people, just start speaking and educating and getting them to come to you. And this is what he did here with a Facebook group. So this is not his group, but he did the same strategy. So if you create a Facebook group and make it a closed group, and if it's a closed group, you can then ask questions that you can see on the right-hand side here. Then make it a group to say something like, mine's called Growth Hacking for Startups. It's not called How to Use Prospect Labs or Patrick Collins Talks About Stuff. It's called Growth Hacking for Startups. SEO friendly, that on Facebook, if somebody's looking for these things, they find my group. But the big image I have says, post your lead generation question here, not sign up or anything like that. But because I ask questions on the right-hand side, you can only join if you answer the questions. How did you hear about the group? Really important for my marketing efforts. What do you need help with? Because I want to know how I can help and make sure the content's relevant. And number 3, what's your email address? So for all 2,000 people in that I've got in the group, I've also got 2,000 email subscribers. This is really powerful because every day I wake up, and it's not viral, but there might be 10, 20 people maybe a day that are joining. I'm not doing any work to do that. It's just building momentum, but that's all new business leads coming in. Now, if you say, but we're not selling a product yet, great. Use this as an environment to educate people, ask questions, get advice. And if you do have a product, then great, do the same thing. So similar like LinkedIn events, I would say there's no excuses for not having a group, because all you have to do is post once per week, builds momentum, and then your audience starts to post and ask questions and that sort of thing. So trying to build this sort of momentum via LinkedIn, sort of outreach via LinkedIn events and via Facebook groups is a really, really good way to build that network of people that, again, if you treat them in the right way, if you support them and if you help them, and you say, do you know anybody that would benefit from this? You start to get referrals. Good. Final thing I want to cover, and this is the final thing today, is setting goals. We've discussed the pipeline. We've discussed a lot about dating and relationships and that sort of thing. We've discussed a strategy in terms of asking for feedback and referrals. We've talked about the target audience from LinkedIn, from newsletters, from finding email addresses, from events and from groups. But how busy do you want to be? And I really like this phrase here. So that which gets measured improves. There's no denying that. When I'm trying to lose weight, it's as if my scales know what's going on in my head. They know that as soon as I stop stepping on those scales, it has to start behaving and work with me. It has to stop losing weight. So I know that when I start measuring things, mentally, I start to say, well, I need to keep doing this. However, that which gets measured and recorded improves exponentially. And by exponentially, I mean, if it's a graph, it doesn't just go like that. It goes up straight away. It massively changes. And the reason being that if any of you in the state of mind that don't have goals, you're just working hard all the time. How do you know if you've had a good month? How do you know if you've had a bad month? How do you know if you're on track compared to where you should be today, this month, this quarter? So you need goals. And then secondly, how are you tracking this? Are you on a spreadsheet? Are you using software? Are you reporting? But getting into a data-driven approach, regardless of the business, means that your decisions are based on forecasting, on a formula, not on a gut feeling that I think we should do this, I think we shouldn't do this. And that's one of my biggest weaknesses. I'm a passionate, emotional person. I love getting to know people, developing people, helping people, but I hate conflict. And when I do get to conflict, my gut feeling is cut the tie, don't do it. Whereas somebody more data-driven would say, well, I need to just step back a bit because actually, financially, this is a good deal or this isn't working for us. But it's very hard and it's a good skill to have. And it's why a lot of great CEOs are more ruthless. They can make those hard decisions without having emotional involvement with it. But what you need to be able to do is have a data-driven approach. And so very quickly, think about this. Do you know where your leads are going to come from? I've showed you some today, but do you actually have a plan to say, we need 50 leads per month, 10 from Facebook, 30 from LinkedIn, 10 from referrals, 10 from advertising, that sort of thing. Do you know your yearly targets? So do you know the big picture to say, even if COVID is going to have lockdown January to March and sales are going to be dented, do we have targets for the year to make a plan of how we adapt? Do you know how many leads you need per month? So if you don't know for the year, I'll be surprised if you know for the month, but you need to know this. Do you know how many people you need to hit your targets? So if you say we need to hit 100K per year, and then you look at it and say, well, we need 50 leads a month, but you have one salesperson who's generating 20 leads, you're understaffed. So having the yearly targets and the monthly targets and the lead targets helps you figure out, who do I need in my team? And then finally, this one, do you know how many sales you need per month? Do you know when good is good enough? And what I mean by this is, as a salesperson, if any of you hired me as a salesperson, hypothetically, I wouldn't be looking to get 100% of targets every month. I would want to get close to it every month. But as soon as I get close to my target for the month, I prepare for the next month. So when I used to do cold calling, first week was building up a pipeline. Weeks 2 to 3 were closing deals. And week 4 was building up a pipeline for week 1. So that every month I would just hit my targets and then it would spill over to next month. I would never have the best month ever, then the worst month ever, because it's inconsistent. And the worst thing, and this is advice to all salespeople, if you over exceed targets, you would think, that's amazing, my manager's going to love what I do. No. You over exceed targets, the next month your manager's going to think you're lazy for not doing that again. So consistent sales helps you to get consistency in results, in relationships, and for startups who's raising investment, foundations of growth is better than erratic sort of behavior. Good. So finally, I want to wrap up. So it's been about an hour and 15. It's been a long talk. I hope you've appreciated a lot of the different areas that I've spoke to you. Now, the questions I asked at the start, were you engaged? Hopefully. Were you taking notes on how to implement this and move forward? And how are you going to build a relationship? Are you going to connect with me on LinkedIn? And if you do, are you going to make it personalized? Or are you just going to send a message? Are you going to say, hey, Pat, love the talk. This is what I learned. Let's meet for coffee. Are you going to try and be empathetic to build a relationship? And then the final one is I have a newsletter. It's nearly over 3,500 now. So this is outdated by a couple of days, but it's a growth newsletter. Now it'll be focused mostly on startups, but all the techniques like today is really just about sales foundations, but mostly for B2B businesses. So please follow that, or just look for Startup Growth on LinkedIn if you want to follow. And to finish up with today, I don't work with a lot of companies direct because most of my business is about training, speaking in my own agency. However, if there are any companies out there that feel like I could have a huge impact on the business, please email me. My email is patrick@prospectlabs.co. And my goal is to have a huge impact on the Lithuanian sales structure, trying to help companies to export product, to sell globally, to train them on different techniques. And hopefully, if you've seen the whole talk today, bits of that will inspire you to say, actually, I could do something different. And if it was the key takeaways, I would just say this. All of you today, look at your list of companies, message a few of them, and just see, can you have a call or meet for coffee just to catch up? That's it. No agenda, just to catch up. And you'll be amazed at the adrenaline it gives you, the goodwill that it gives you, but more importantly, how it seals the foundation of working with them. So thank you so much for today. I'm going to just stop sharing now. And I think it's over to everybody just to finish off. But thank you so much for your time today, everybody. And it's been a real pleasure and an honor to try and explain my view on sales and building that pipeline.